Entrepreneurship, got that inspiration. Yeah, now I'm just doing it. Working on these projects, my ideas I'm pursuing. No matter what the problem, the solution, I'm proving it. Let's talk about it and open up the dialogue. Contractors, telling their stories about how they got it started and how they keep it going. The passion fuels the mission, now we blasting into orbit, we gone. That's where we grow from. Started with the vision, make the pitch and knock it out the park like home runs. We keep it moving, self-belief, no doubt. Pass off the mic to my man's Jim Cloud. I don't wanna stop for nothing.
Welcome to Contractor Stories. I am your host, Jim Cloud, and our contributor, Bob Mueller. Hey, Bob, how are you?
I'm doing great. Hey, great to be here, Jim. Can't wait to do the show today. We have a great guest today on the podcast.
This guy is incredible, Chaz Wolfe. When he comes on to the program in a few moments, I think people are going to be blown away. Number one, if you think our podcast is great, you should see him because he's great on camera, great with the microphone, great presenter, and he's an entrepreneur.
Yeah. So a little bit about Chaz. I mean, I got to do his show about a year ago. He had me on, actually one of my first podcasts that I'd ever done. His podcast space is kind of for the, the 7 to 9 figure small contracting company. Gets those kind of guys on there, kind of helps elevate them, bring them up. Has a really good podcast. He's actually now in the top 2% of all podcasts. He's a young, successful entrepreneur out there, kind of still writing his story a little bit, but there's still a story to be told.
Yeah. Well, let's bring him on then.
Absolutely.
Welcome to Contractor Stories, everybody. I'm your host, Jim Cloud, and Bob Mueller, of course, our favorite contributor, is here. And we have an exciting guest today, Chaz Wolfe. Hey, Chaz, how you doing, buddy?
I'm doing wonderful. So thankful to be here. Thank you both for the opportunity.
It's great to have you here, Chaz. Really excited for this opportunity and really excited for this show, man. Really want to get to know your story, man.
Yeah.
Yep. And as many of you know, on Contractor Stories, we go deep into the man or woman behind the businesses. And Chaz,
I feel you looking through me, right now.
That's right. Chaz, I understand you're a serial entrepreneur, which means, for those of you who don't know, Chaz is a lot of different things. So why don't you start off with telling us a little bit about what you do, and then I'm going to be asking some questions that go way back to see how you got to where you are now.
Well, I love the opportunity to go back, so I'll relish here in a few minutes. But what I do now is I operate, well, more so visionary, multiple companies. I have multiple franchises. I have multiple real estate companies. I have a remodeling company. I have a mastermind group for 7 to 9 figure business owners, and I run a globally top ranked podcast.
Is that all you do? You don't do anything
No,
else?
That's not all I do. Wait, pause. Okay, so I have a beautiful wife, 4 kids.
Yeah.
The house is crazy. My wife has like 30 chickens, and I get roped into that sometimes. Like the list can go on and on if you want me to.
I think you might have some chicken wars going on over there, Jim. I think you got a few chickens on your ranch over there yourself.
That's right.
I have some chickens. As a matter of fact, I've got about 11 that are going to be hatching shortly out of an incubator, but that's a whole nother story. I kind of have a hobby as a chicken guy. So I joke that I'm a chicken farmer.
Yeah.
And apparently you gather kings. Gathering kings.
Gather them up.
Discuss that a little bit before we go back into your history.
Yeah, so roughly 18 months ago, I launched the mastermind group called Gathering the Kings, and it specifically originally was for 7 to 9 figure business owners. And it was because I found myself in this place where I wanted peers around me, people who have been successful in business. It doesn't mean that people smaller in revenue aren't successful. It just means that there's a certain conversation happening above that $1 million mark, and really it's about strategy, mindset, team building. Of course, there's sales and marketing and all the functions, but at that level, it's just something different, which I wanted people around the table to talk about, specifically a round table. I wanted you and John and Matt and everybody to come to the table, take off our crowns, put down the ego, and just help each other. I didn't see that in the marketplace, and that's what I wanted as an entrepreneur myself. And so I just created it. It was pretty cool. I launched it. I didn't really know what was going to happen. Had initial 7 guys join me. We now have a flourishing large group that we do in-person events. We do virtual events. real relationships. Like just a couple of weeks ago, I was floating the Colorado a river with 5 of the guys, all different states. I've known them, some of them for 18 months, some of them for 6 or 7 months. And it's like, we've been brothers, since the beginning of time. I say brothers, and I've mentioned a couple men, but man, we got a couple of like queens in the group.
Wow.
And those
Queens.
they mean business. And so always good perspective to keep things around the table sharp. That's how we grow. I'm obsessed with growth in all areas. So I'm just inviting other people into that journey with me.
Chaz, I love
the
concept of a round table like that.
Thanks, Jim.
Yeah, no, it's awesome. But you did get your start in like franchises though, right? If I remember correctly?
Yeah, 24 years old, purchased my first franchise, Edible Arrangements. In 4 years, I went from 0 to 7 locations, 3 states. In my late 20s, 65 employees, millions of dollars in sales. And it was a chaotic mess, yet organized somehow. And then, of course, real estate and remodeling and Gathering the Kings and all that stuff came later.
So in a short amount of time, you've really learned a lot as an adult male. In business.
I'm 36.
I mean, seriously.
Yeah, no, in all seriousness, yes. I'm 36 now. I've been in business for 12 years. And I've learned a bunch. Yes, not just by winning, but by failing a bunch.
Everybody knows the best way to learn is to lose. And we need to be a loser sometime to be a winner. And very few people who say, I've always won, I trust. I really don't trust people who say that they've always won. Right? It's like building muscle. You have to tear it down first, don't you?
That's right. And it's not only just accurate for the muscle, but it's accurate for our minds and then also the business that we're producing. So I would say that I am where I am today at 36 based on the decisions that I've made. And so just like in my podcast, I really try to crux things on good and bad decision making because I genuinely believe I'm here today based on my history of decisions. And it's true for all of us. Now, yes, I've made some bad decisions. We all have. But I like to think of I have control of either what has happened, yes, but then also even more so from here today going forward, I have control over the decisions that I make, which then produce the results that we're going to see in 12 months, 36 months, 60 months. And so wherever Gathering the Kings is or wherever my remodeling or real estate companies are in 60 months from now are going to be based on the decisions I'm making today, which should give your listeners like this immense power, right?
Absolutely.
Yeah. Thank God you've got a sound mind. And I'm not really being flip here. It's so important that to be a successful person in life, especially when you're an entrepreneur, it's one thing to have a job. I mean, I've worked in the W-2 world and I've been on my own for 20 years now. Big difference. And so when you're out there pushing it every day and you're raising a family with 4 children, and you've got a wife and you've got chickens, because I know all about that. There's a lot going on. And if you don't have a sound mind, in other words, if you don't keep it all together here between the ears, it can be very challenging. And not everyone is up to the task of being an entrepreneur and a business owner.
That's right. And I agree. And the mindset is by far the most valuable asset that I have. I'll continue to work on that. The very first thing that I do when I wake up every single day for the rest of the days that I'm alive.
Yeah. And I'm sure that you're a voracious reader and you're probably a writer as well.
Check.
Yeah. Yeah. Good stuff. All right, Chaz, we're going to go back in time.
Let's do it.
Tell us who Chaz was as a 10-year-old.
Chaz at 10 years old was in 4th grade, just starting to play basketball. I grew up single mom family. And so that means I didn't know my dad. There was no dad. I never called anybody dad. And starting basketball in 4th grade, transitioning from Taekwondo, actually. And so I've always been a disciplined individual. I love order. And so Taekwondo was cool. And I moved through the ranks. And then when 4th grade came, I was able to play on a club team and just learn the game. And being pretty tall, I was able to pick up the game quickly and then keep my feet about me. And I continued that for many, many years. But that was me. I was a serious but goofy kid. I think I still resonate with that today. I'm a pretty intense individual on the front end. You hear some of the stuff we've just got done talking about. It's like, whoa, dude, do you ever take a break? And it's like, well, no, but kind of sometimes, like when I want to, and when I'm playing with the kids. Yeah. But in general, I've been pretty intense or intentional my whole life. Even at 10, I'm practicing ball. I'm doing school. Like when I came home from school, it was like homework first, single mom family, but it was like A plus B equals C, and excellence is the only thing that you're going to produce. Otherwise, like, you're kind of out of the family type of thing.
So who was your male role model then when you were that age? Who was your male role models?
I would love to tell you that I had one, but I didn't. And there was some, some guys that my mom knew that she would say, "Hey, will you, take my son laser tagging and stuff?" And that was all cool. And then when I got into high school, there was a youth minister of mine that I latched onto for a couple of years. But I didn't have one, unfortunately. And so when I was 17, 18, kind of that pivotal moment in life where you're like becoming a man and, all the stuff, I really started reading. And so in school, I was not a reader. In fact, I was the most resourceful student that there was. And so, I started reading Think and Grow Rich at 18, 19. And I'm like, at first I don't understand this. I'm reading How to Win Friends and Influence People. I'm reading, How to Raise Myself from Failure to Success and Selling. Like, I read hundreds of books from 17 to 20, like hundreds, no exaggeration. And that was me, or the guiding star of going, okay, like, I've never liked this school thing. I've always liked excellence, doing things well. Okay, fine. But I just didn't know the outlet. Basketball was good and I had some natural ability, but I knew I wasn't going to play pro. So I like halfway through junior year, I'm like, let's just call it what it is. I'm not going to make money from this. So why don't I just stop and start doing something that makes me money, which eventually turned into entrepreneurship because I was able to latch on to, a Napoleon Hill or, some of the other greats I've mentioned.
Wow. So you and I are kind of similar. As a student, when I was young, I didn't know what I was doing there. I didn't want to be there, actually.
There's no why.
And what's interesting is so many people put so much stock in a formal education. I also went to college. I graduated with a degree in marketing and a minor in communication, which is what I do today. I actually use it. But yeah, I've learned everything since, most things since then. And much like you, I like to read and educate myself and become the best I can be. And, it's very interesting. At such a young age, Chaz, you really, really caught on to that. I was in my 30s. I was almost your age when it really started to click for me. Yeah. And then I left the corporate world. So let's go back again. You're a young guy. Obviously today you are an influencer and you're a leader. Were you also an influencer and leader when you were 10, 11, 12, 13?
Yes, I was. And I want to just take an opportunity to make sure that your listener understands that my story isn't their story. Just like you just said, your story, even though we're similar in how we went about it, it was different in age. And so it's never too late to get started. It's never like today's the greatest day. It's like, in my real estate, like, when's the best time to buy? Now. Well, 20 years ago, but if we can't buy 20 years ago, now. And so I think it's the same way about personal development or the mind and growing your mind, your business, your family, all these dimensions of life that we talk about inside of Gathering Kings. But yeah, I was helpful at that time. I'm also a firstborn of a single mom family. So I was the man of the house at, pretty early, 12, 13. And I wasn't necessarily financially responsible at that time, but my mom and I were more partners than son and mother. Right. And because I was the only person for her to lean on. I had a sister as well, but firstborn male, like I just fit right into the role. So whether that like shaped some of my leadership and like drug me into that, or if that's just how my DNA rolls, both and maybe, I remember helping a kid in my 5th grade class that had Down syndrome. I made sure he got on the bus and got off the bus. We went out to recess together. I was always a captain, picking basketball teams, but I made sure I took care of Patrick, and it just being situationally aware is probably what I would say now in my mature brain. Is just back then I had the ability to pay attention to the things that were happening around me, even at a young age.
Geographically, what area was that in?
I grew up in Columbia, Missouri. So, fairly small town. I mean, less than 100,000, small town folks are going to hear that and go, that was a big city. Yeah. And there's some city in me, but at the same time too, like, I live on acreage now. Like we mentioned, we got, chickens, and I like space, and, the small town values are probably what I would say is how I grew up. Even though it was a single mom family, it was like, look, here's what's right. do what's right consistently over the course of time in school, in life, and things work out. Plant good seeds. I mean, that's what the Bible says, right?
Yeah. Chaz, I
Absolutely.
can relate to so much of what you said. So this isn't my story, it's yours. So we'll stick with you. Um,
I
so
love that you can relate.
yeah, no, I can relate about your mom leaning on you because you were the eldest male living at home. She could depend on you, and I totally understand that. So you've done a lot of great things in your life. I would say you're very successful from our eyes. Okay, we look
Sure.
at you and we say you're successful. Do you have any regrets in your life that you wish you hadn't done? If you could go back, you could change it. This is a regret that you could actually affect.
Right.
What would that be if you have one?
That's a great question. It's hard to think in regrets. Like I'm forcing my brain right now to go in that lane. Because I firmly believe obviously that things happen for a reason and that I'm here based on the decisions that I've made, like I've already mentioned. And so, I think like when you're talking about me being younger, I was playing basketball and competitively and never wanted to mess up my shot. So it didn't really work out that hard. So I'm just a skinny kid, tall, skinny kid, which has turned into a tall, skinny man. I'm just now in my life, like I've always talked about it, but I'm just now in my life over the last couple of years going like, no, I'm going to fill my frame, and I'm in the gym and I'm purposely eating a certain amount of calories, and I'm doing the things that I probably could have done at 12, 13, 14, 15, 16, 17, 18 pretty easily, but didn't want to mess up the shot. So that might be one like physical kind of fun thing I'd go back and change. But as far as like, I just am who I am unapologetically. I didn't like school. I was good at it. I slept through it, but I didn't like it. Just like you said, I didn't know why I was there. I remember having a teacher tell me, well, you should be in honors classes. And I literally, a 16-year-old, I said, okay, can you tell me the benefits of being in an honors class? And she
What's the
said, well,
upside?
yeah, what's the upside? Literally. She was like, well, I mean, you can get college credit for if you go to an honors college, and you would challenge yourself, which I agree to the challenge piece now, but then as a 16-year-old, like no chance, right?
Mhm.
My first answer was, well, first off, I'm not going to college, let alone an honors college. So screw. What you're telling me is that I can sit in class, sleep, and get a B or an A, sorry, or I should go to this other class and struggle to get a C or a B. No thanks, right? So I think I've always just kind of been whippy, like that, and I don't know if I would go back and change a whole bunch.
Well, it sounds like you work smart and not hard, and that's okay. Right?
Right?
You don't always have to work hard. Now, sometimes you do, but some people work way harder than they need to achieve what someone else may achieve with just working smart. And a lot of people will say, hard work is so important. My grandfather and father worked hard, and they told me if I worked hard, I could have everything in the world I want. And I said, maybe. So,
Yeah. Well, and let me piggyback on that, because if you looked at my actual calendar and you tracked my actual time, bro, like I'm going to subscribe to what you just said as far as hard work for sure. I have outworked most of the people in my sphere. I've just been willing to do what other people haven't been willing to do. On top of that, then you couple that with, how can I do this better, faster, stronger, the smarter way? That as you were saying that, it also made me think back to when I was early on in business. Maybe one thing that I would change that I'm crushing in now is building relationships, like with a Jim and a Bob, is because when I was young, 24, 25, 26, 27, even though I was crushing that individual business, I was, really laser focused right here. And I didn't find value in relationships, really is what it was. Coaches, mentors, podcasts, promoting myself and or just connecting, not knowing what's going to happen. But on my podcast, it's like 400 plus episodes. I shake the guy's hand or the gal's hand, and I'm like, look, I don't know what's going to come of this, right? When Bob was on my show a year ago, I said, dude, however we work together in the next decades, cool. Maybe that's you being part of what I'm doing. Maybe that's me part of being what you're doing. And what do we have here? Me, an opportunity to talk about my story, promote myself, share with your audience, add value, all because I stuck out my hand over a year ago and met Bob. Like that
Absolutely.
the power of that is what I didn't understand 12 years ago.
Yeah, but to your point, though, I mean, at 24 years old, you don't build a lot of credibility at 24 years old. You don't build a lot of influence over older people. So you don't
Sure.
really find value in yourself when you're 24 years old, but you start to find value in yourself as you build a little bit of credibility, build a little bit of experience. Now you've built quite a bit of experience for yourself, even though you're still very young. I mean, you're still only 36 years old. Your story is still being written. I mean, we're
That's
here
right.
to talk about your story, but it is still being written. Let's be clear. You got a big story probably ahead. What's your aspirations? What's still motivating you?
Yeah, that's a great question. I want to win, Bob. And that's a really generic answer, but it really is what's deep inside of me. I really wake up thinking more. And I know that there are other people out there like me. And that's the only reason I've been able to kind of come to terms with this answer, because I've started to find them. They're joining, I'm gathering them. They're called kings. But this desire for growth, and it's not just revenue growth, it's I want to be the pinnacle, right? And but with underneath that, it's the understanding that I'm never going to reach it. It was like, so how, wait, you're going to wake up every day excited to become the best version of yourself, which you fully understand that you'll never reach. What? That's what keeps the game interesting. So I wake up thinking I get to play the game again, the game of business, the game of team building, the game of growth. But that also transcends into what we call the other 5 dimensions. It's my marriage, it's my family, it's my spirituality, it's my lifestyle, it's my, it's all the stuff, and I can't win in one area and not the other and and have integrity, in my opinion. There's plenty of people that do it. For me, though, that's not excellence. Going back to the childhood again, it's like my mom didn't have me do these things in order to teach me excellence so that I could come in and be an all-star in business and a crappy husband or a crappy dad or a crappy friend or, not lead people. I mean, I already mentioned the Bible. It's like, I'm not going to wear the Jesus flag, but I'm going to tell you right now, it goes deep and it helps. And it helps me make decisions. And so I'm not afraid to share something like this on a platform because it's in there. But I can't be talking on a platform about what I believe the Bible to say or how it impacts my life or my decisions if I'm not reading it every day and journeying along in that process. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah, exactly. So Chaz, your game never ends, but it needs to change a bit because if nothing else, you have a family with 4 young children. And as they blossom, things change. Believe it or not, they might get married one day and you might be a grandfather. So all these things change.
Yeah.
And so you're out there every day pushing, winning, but it's not linear, is it? It's like this, right? It grows out this way. It goes up and wide.
That's right. To your point, and I love even just the expansion version of what you're saying rather than just an upward trajectory, because you're right. I am going to be a grandfather one day, Lord willing. And I'm excited to do deals with my kids and my grandkids. I don't even have old enough kids now. My oldest is 9. No chance of her having children anytime soon. And I'm dreaming of the day that my dream is so big that my kids and my grandkids get to work with me in unity. It's not even my dream anymore at that point. It's the Wolfe family trajectory. What are we trying to accomplish in this world? And it's not my business that they're going to be part of. It's going to be our business or businesses or portfolio or whatever it looks like at that time. It's so that's my role as the patriarch now, thinking ahead 3 generations going, I need to make this thing so big that they have space to be themselves and contribute to, the Wolfe family unity, Yeah,
100%. With that name, last name Wolfe. Now that's given to you by your dad. Is that given to you by your dad? Is that
so
family name?
You just opened up a whole nother can. So I started off saying single mom family, didn't know my dad. So I met him at 24 years old. He did not know I existed. I did not know he was my dad. I thought someone else was my dad who had been in and out of prison, never called anybody dad a day in my life. And I get some information that tips me off otherwise. And over the course of 3 or 4 weeks, I figure out who this guy is, where he is. I know everything about him. And I know everything except for my logical brain says, this is still hearsay. I need a little bit more proof. And so I find his senior vet picture where he went to school at Mizzou, the veterinary program. And I'll tell you what, if you just remove my beard, put an 80s mustache on me, it's the same dude. And when I saw that picture for the first time, it was like, oh my goodness, whoa. And then I saw me, and it was like, I'm just looking at me. This is crazy. So over the course of a couple of weeks, I reach out. We finally get a hold of each other. It took me 11 phone calls to get him on the phone. He's a large and small animal vet, owns 2 practices, lots of farm ground, cows. I mean, he's an entrepreneur, right? Well, go figure. And so it's like, I call him up. I'm like, hey, I've got reason to believe. I know this about you. And I think you might be my biological father. And he's like, okay, well, let's explore this a little bit. He didn't run away, didn't hang up on me. Thank goodness. We ended up finding out through a DNA test that it was all positive. And we've been building a relationship the last 11, 12 years. We've been elk hunting together almost every single year, which is a huge passion of his that he's passed on to me now. But the Wolfe name is just only the external piece of what was already in me, the DNA, you know? And so inside of the single mom like environment, but with DNA that I didn't even know existed, it sprouts this person that you see before you, which I was always Wolfe. I just didn't know it. You know what I mean?
But this was your father's last name. Is that correct?
Correct. Yeah. Okay. I literally changed my name. Literally.
This is fascinating. So I've got to ask you this question.
Yeah.
Your father didn't know you existed? He didn't know he fathered you?
He did not know. Now,
he was not ignorant. That's got to be a huge shock to that man.
Yes, but he was not ignorant to the idea that maybe he had partaken in some action when he was younger that may have produced this result.
Well, he was a vet, so he took biology. He knows how it works.
He did. Yeah. Funny thing is, Jim, is that he would say every Father's Day, well, didn't get that card from that long lost child of mine as a joke. And so, of course, on my first Father's Day with him, I made sure I wrote him that card from that long lost child.
Wow.
The whole thing is, I mean, I could write a book, do a movie, you know, and actually, believe it or not, this happens a lot more than we think. And it's coming more to light with, you know, Ancestry and DNA 123 or whatever it's called. But for me, it was the Lord's picture of going, hey, this is how I've always seen you. Here's a little gift, just like he talks about in the Bible, and he changes people's names and he births them into a new identity. About 3 weeks later, after I changed my name, when I bought my first franchise, and everything has been different. Chaz Wolfe, as you know, and as I've described, is different than the Chaz before. Same guy, same DNA, but I have a whole new revelation on life, as you could say, right?
Well, so you changed your last name, but it never changed your identity. I mean, you were always Chaz, but now you're Chaz Wolfe. Did that make you feel different?
Yes, but I would say that I walked into an identity that I didn't know existed for me, right? And which is the best, us becoming the best version of ourselves. I'm still walking into this identity because 20 years from now, what is Chaz Wolfe? Who is Chaz Wolfe? What has he done? What's his impact? What's his influence? What's he like? I don't know, but I'm trying to meet that guy, which then drives me every morning. Going back to your question a few minutes ago, I was like, I got to meet that guy. Because if I don't keep going, I'm not going to meet that guy. Right. And so we all have that ability to like,
right. But you led your family, as the kind of the patriarch of your family growing up with the single mother, right, with some siblings. Now, how many siblings did you say you have?
Just grew up with one sister, but when I met my dad, I met my other 3 sisters, my brother, my aunts, uncles, cousins, grandma, grandpa, you know, the whole deal.
Wow.
That's incredible. And Chaz, I give you a lot of credit because a lot of people could have a breakdown, literally a mental breakdown at that point. It had to be extremely emotional for you.
You know, it reminds me of one particular moment. I'm talking to my dad, and we had just gotten the test results. And we had already been talking before. He had seen my picture. I had seen his. His wife was like, that's your son, dude. And so we had already kind of like mentally gone there. We had been talking back and forth, but we didn't have the actual results. And so we had gotten the results. I called him up and he's like, okay, well, I should probably call my mom and dad. I'll call your sisters and your brother. And when he said, I knew about my sisters and my brother, and it makes sense that he would have a mom and dad, my grandfather and grandmother. But I had not thought about that up until this point. Now, pause. Up until this moment, I'm like 12-ish years of sales experience. Even though as a young guy at 24, maybe not 12, it was probably 7, 8 years. I don't want to exaggerate. Long enough to where I was already building sales teams and teaching sales process, AKA I had thought about the call tree. I had thought about, if I say this, he might say this. And if he says that, then I'm going to say this. And then, I had thought about it. I had not thought about him saying, I'm going to call my mom and dad your grandpa and grandma. And I was like, whoa, I don't have a grandfather. I've never had a grandfather. I didn't have a dad. So when he said that, I was like, whoa. And he said back to me, okay, is this too much? Like, should we slow down? I'm like, no, this makes logical sense that you would have a mom and a dad. I just hadn't thought that far yet. And so you're right. Maybe there's a lot of emotions there. There's a lot of working through with the Lord, right? But I'll tell you this, just as I was growing up as a single mom family, is like, I just didn't use it as an excuse. The situation was, I knew my mom and I knew my sister and my grandmother. That's it. That's the cards that I was dealt. So I can either loathe in the fact of what I don't have, or I can press into what I do have. And what I had was a curiousness of life and an intelligence to want more. Like, let me figure this thing out. And so I just never looked at the no dad situation or really any other excuse as an excuse. I just brushed over it and kept right on going, which is where most people get hung up. And so the moment that you're talking about, I could have gotten hung up for sure, but why? It's so exciting,
Yeah. But now, did your sister meet her father for the first time as well? Or is there a different story there?
Yes, she did. We actually thought both of our dads was the same guy, and he ended up not being either one of our dads. And the reality there is this, look, my mother is the strongest woman that I know, period.
Mm-hmm.
And she bestowed on me the work ethic, the get it done, figure it out, get creative, excellence. I already mentioned that. And she was carrying with her all of this like unknown shame, guilt, probably, just this heaviness. And so, some people have asked, well, what about her? What about dad? Like, he might be upset. Well, grandma and grandpa, it's like, look, the reality is that we now know. So why don't we draw the line? Why don't we be a blessing to each other? Me even being a blessing to my mom, because I'll tell you this much. She was able to move through things in life and even still moves through things in life because of how I've responded to this situation.
Yeah.
The blessing doesn't come to the victim. It comes through the victim to the person who caused it. Now, she didn't maliciously cause it, but I still could have that perspective. I could be angry, Yeah.
It's a wild story.
Jim, you said we were going deep. I told you.
Yeah. I might need a moment here.
we got some tissue in the background for you, Jim. We got some tissue.
Yeah. That's right.
So Chaz, we've talked a lot about the wins you've had, and from my perspective, it looks like you are living the dream. You're growing every day. Beautiful family. You found family over the years that you didn't know you ever would, and that seems to have been a very positive thing. Tell us, what is the biggest win you believe you've had in your business or professional life? The single biggest win, which means that wouldn't have just happened. Like, I don't believe in winning the lottery. That's kind of luck. I mean, a win, something you probably had something to do with.
That's a great question. Single greatest win in business, particularly.
In business or life. I'm letting you choose. I'm giving you a whole bunch more room here.
I appreciate that. The easy answer, if you expand it to life, is choosing my wife. And I'll stand by that day in and day out, even though there's been times where, I may have felt differently in the moment, because we all have those. But we've been married 15 years, been together 18. And it's like, I know for sure that I am who I am today, largely responsible to who she's been standing next to me, not behind me, not in front of me, right to the side of me, owning her lanes, owning the things that she needs to be in charge of, supporting me while also me supporting her. But I cannot, for any listener out there today, probably the best, most impactful decision that a man can make their spouse. I would say for female as well, but it just looks different for us as men.
I agree 100%. I mean, I can tell you that that's the biggest issue that most men find in their life, is not being supported by a woman that will let a man grow, because ultimately we're building a man's legacy, whether we believe it or not. I mean, all the graves that I see in the graveyards are written in stone with the man's name on it. So we are still building men's legacies here. So ultimately, it's important to choose a wife that's going to help get you there, but we both are equally important in the roles that we play. But I can honestly say that choosing a woman to take you down this path that you're going down is a huge win for you. That's a massive win for you.
Well, and some of your listeners might be, everything that you've said is absolutely true. They might be thinking that what that means for the wife is to be quiet and submissive and supportive. And look, my wife is Italian. And I use the culture index for personality profiles. She's an AB stack persuader. What that means is that she don't take from nobody, including me.
Yeah.
Which is why I am who I am, because she hasn't let me be anything less. So it's not just this traditional be quiet woman, although there is a place for that. And the traditional male and female role, and her to be in her feminine and to be protected by my masculine protection, and for her to be quiet and let me lead, although that sounds strong, there are moments where I'm quiet and she leads. So let's not get it twisted here. But what she requires is protection and provision. That's my role. And what I require is support and respect. And so it's just this beautiful dance, and that we're still very much learning, to be honest. But I just did a family mastermind cruise with Gathering the Kings. Is our first family mastermind trip. Our next one's coming up in January in Cancun. But I have this coaching couple that comes in, and we do marriage sessions while the kids are playing together, and we're doing this family business marriage thing. But there were things that we learned even just a couple of months ago in Bermuda about each other and how we can continue to grow as what I just described, me supporting her and her supporting me. But and even inside of the traditional roles is going to look different. But like, I guess what I'm saying is that we can win, me and Julie, or you and your spouse, whoever's listening to me say this right now. You just have to like really press into that. We're talking about pressing into life and business, but like, are you pressing into your marriage? Are you pressing into how it is that she operates, or he? Vice versa.
Yeah. And having been married 25 years now to the same woman, because, if you've been married 3 or 4 times, I guess you could say 25 years and divide it amongst the women, but this is just one. Okay. We talked about how things change, Chaz, all right? Things change over time. We change, and so do our partners. And for those of you who are recently married, hold on tight, because it could be great, but you have to understand things change. When you get married, things change quickly, because now you're a married couple and you're not dating anymore. And then you might have children, and then you might become co-managers of the house, and what happened to our relationship and so forth. So it looks like you've done great, and it's so important to have a great partner on both sides. And I totally agree with that. Okay. Here is the second to last question.
Okay.
And that is, if you had to do anything over again in your business or personal life, what would that be? So you have a mulligan, a do-over.
Yeah.
What would that be?
My first answer that wants to pop out is, buy Apple, buy Bitcoin, buy Tesla.
Okay. That's fair. That's good. Okay.
Probably the real answer is, what I know now about business is that I didn't need the franchise, right? I thought I did at that time because I didn't have any business experience. I was only 24, and maybe I did need it. It is how I was able to operate at a young age with little experience. But knowing what I know now, like I don't need that provision or that protection or that support. And so if I was talking to the 24-year-old Chaz, I might say, hey, you've got all that it takes. It might have taken me longer So it just would have been different lessons. I still think I would be basically where I am. It just would have been a slightly different, path. So
Yeah, but certainly no regret there because it's something that you did and it's done and you learned something from it. But what I think you're saying is maybe you could have used that time a little more efficiently to get to a place.
it's the vehicle, right? So like what I've learned now in business, and this is important for anybody who's paying really, really close attention, is that you can have goals and dreams all you want. But if the vehicle that you're driving can't get you to where you want to go, you're just in the wrong vehicle. That's it. There's just no emotional attachment to whatever it is that you're doing, family business or not, or franchise or not, whatever the situation is. And so that's the conversation that I'm having more with myself and also mastermind members. It's like, look, you say you want to go from this number to this number. Is your current business able to do that? Even if you were a rock star and Elon Musk and you go to the moon or to Mars in your own business, can it even do that? And well, the reality is most times, no. And it's not me being negative. It's going, no, look at the vehicle. It just doesn't go that fast. So that's probably what I would have done differently if I could change the vehicle or my understanding of the vehicle. That's what I would have done different.
Yeah. And Chaz, what's great about that is you can help other people. You've been there and you can say, you know what? That's my do-over. So you're not going to do that. You should do this because, and so that's one of the great things about advancing through life and maturing and become seasoned like Bob. Bob and I are both
very seasoned here. Yes.
Very seasoned.
I'm actually the senior one here. I like to give Bob a hard time, but, and it's really fun because I actually, I could be your father. So Chaz, so not Bob's. And I'm not, and I want to confuse
Dad, where you been?
I don't want to confuse people because if you've just tuned in, we know who Chaz's father is.
Yeah, we did. We found out 12 years ago.
Oh my goodness.
We're not looking for him anymore.
I don't mean to confuse people. All right.
I see similarity here, guys. I see similarity here. It could be. It could be.
Could be the beard.
So we're going to wrap things up. And I love to wrap up a great interview with asking the guest, Chaz Wolfe, what book recommendation do you have for the people who are consuming this content today? And most of the people watching this are they're small business owners, they're entrepreneurs, and a lot of them are contractors in the home service space. Do you have a favorite book you could recommend?
Yeah, I have to say, outside of the Bible, although the Bible's got plenty of business. I mean, just read Proverbs over and over. I would just, you could end it there. But you're asking for something tactical. Okay, fine. And I don't know if this is even tactical, but Think and Grow Rich is that book. I read it every single year, multiple times a year. I've read it probably 4 times this year already. The sooner that the listener can figure out that their actions are what cause the result in their life. I already told you this at the beginning. I believe that the decisions that I make, the actions that I take, are what get me the results that I have or don't have. And how you control that is your thoughts, and how you control your thoughts is by your subconscious mind. 95% of all of your actions are unconscious or subconscious. The way that I fidget my shoulders, the way that I moved my mic, the things that I'm going to do later today are all subconscious. And so I spend intentional time every single day feeding my subconscious mind what I want it to do when I'm not thinking with my conscious mind, which includes not just being a business all-star and crushing and making money, although that Think and Grow Rich is limited to how do you make money. But it's the same principles that I literally in my daily visualization, I'm talking about what I'm doing with Julie, how I'm listening and being patient and thoughtful, what I'm doing with my children, how I'm leading other people, my goals in the business or in my spiritual walk, how I'm leading a Bible study or whatever. Like all of these things I'm feeding to myself on a daily basis so that the actions that come out later are actually what I want. And all that comes from Think and Grow Rich.
Right. But you're still only 36 years old. And so at 36, right, still pretty young, you've done a lot of big things, but what, if you could say you see yourself at age, I'm 56, so I'm 20 years older, right? Mm-hmm. What does 56-year-old Chaz look like?
Well, Lord willing, I have some grandkids. So goes back to what we were just talking about a few minutes ago, the vision that I already have for my family. There's, maybe there's multiple companies, maybe there's one, I don't know. There's going to be real estate in there for sure. And so there is a big enough mission that my family is on, that my son and my daughters and any grandchildren that I have not only a spot or a space, but enough where they can be their own person, have their own vision that creates a solution to the mission that my family's on. And we're in the process of developing that. So what that looks like, super minute detail at 56, don't know, other than I'm going to have some kids and some grandkids and we're going to be doing deals.
Nice.
All right.
Beautiful.
Hey, Chaz, on that note, thank you so much for joining Bob and I today on Contractor Stories. Really appreciate it. By the way, everybody, we're going to have some great nuggets in the show notes. So Chaz is going to provide all kinds of cool links to contact him, and it's all going to be there in the show notes. And also his book recommendation. We'll put a link there as well. Chaz.
Yeah. And anything that you want to plug real quick, Chaz?
Yeah, I appreciate both of that. It's been an honor to be here with both of you guys. Thank you for the intelligent and thoughtful questions. Gathering the Kings is what my mission is right now. And so what that means is that I'm putting entrepreneurs together that want more. We have a phrase called grateful, but not done. And so if you're an entrepreneur that has the perspective of gratefulness and being thankful for where you are, but you're far from done, no matter your age, no matter your industry, and you want to be around other people that think like you, go to gatheringthekings.com and we'll see if it works out.
Nice.
Perfect. Chaz Wolfe, thank you so much, my friend. I appreciate it.
Appreciate you guys.
Thanks, Chaz.
Entrepreneurship, got that inspiration. Yeah, now I'm just doing it. Working on these projects, my ideas I'm pursuing. No matter what the problem, the solution, I'm proving it. Let's talk about it and open up the dialogue. Contractors, telling their stories about how they got it started.